Tottenham's Swedish summer signing Lucas Bergvall has made it to one of the biggest Wonderkid lists in Europe. There'll be more about that later in this episode of Tottenham Hotspur News on the Spurred podcast. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, listening and watching wherever you are. I really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to take you through all of the Spurs news that I've dug up over the last few days to keep you abreast of the situation at Tottenham when, let's face it, we're still kind of licking our wounds from that defeat at Fulham over a week ago now. But surely now it's time to look forward as we go home at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the weekend against Luton. But let's see what all the news has been. Obviously, international week, so lots of stories about the Spurs players who have played for their countries. But a big up to Vicario, our goalkeeper. Guglielmo Vicario has made his first start for Italy in a 2-0 win against Ecuador. His first game and a clean sheet too. I wanted to talk about him at the top because I think we are so fortunate to have found Vicario. It was always going to be hard to follow Hugo Lloris. I know his form dropped off a little bit towards the end of his Spurs career, but what an absolute legend of the club Hugo was. Honestly, made some saves that were just out of this world and kept us in games and was, listen, it's no coincidence. We had the keeper for over 10 years who ended up winning the World Cup for France. That's how good he was. That's how important he was. And we were very fortunate to have him. So to follow him was always going to be difficult, but you've got to give credit to the recruitment team because even though we were in talks with buying Raya from Brentford, who ended up going on loan to Arsenal, and a lot of fans were unhappy when we didn't get that Raya deal over the line. But I think, having seen how Raya and Vicario have played this season and the amount of money we paid for Vicario compared to what Raya would cost in the long run, Raya would be over £40 million. I think it's fair to say we've got the right one in Vicario. He's pretty commanding. It's still in his first season in the Premier League. So yeah, there are going to be a few little mistakes there. We know he's been put under pressure from corners that are being landed on top of him, for instance. But the saves that he makes and his sweeper keeping coming off the line, vital in this Ange ball high line front foot football that we've been playing. And I really think we've got a fantastic goalkeeper there. And great to see him get his first cap for Italy as well. He's got a real fight on his hands there because obviously Italy have got Donnarumma, who I've also always really rated, top goalkeeper. But in Italy, there's a little bit of talk about whether Donnarumma has gone off the boil a bit. And maybe if Vicario keeps keeping clean sheets for them, even though this was, of course, only a friendly, maybe he'll get a chance there. Anyway, now other international roundup news. Giovanni Lo Celso scored against El Salvador for Argentina. And also Christian Romero scored in that game as well in a 3-goal win. I put Lo Celso in my thumbnail today, actually, because I think he's a really fascinating player. If you watch the goal that he scored for Argentina, he's such a brilliant finisher. He doesn't have a right foot. He has no interest in his right foot whatsoever. But he found a way to get his left foot outside of the ball, to use the outside of his left foot to poke it past the keeper. He's a clutch finisher, Lo Celso, as we saw earlier this season at the Etihad, where he scored that magnificent goal. But as ever, it almost feels like he gets on the pitch more for Argentina than he does for Spurs. Now, he's been on the bench the last few weeks, since his last injury. But at the moment, it doesn't seem like Ange really thinks he's got a chance of breaking into that first team. However, after that performance against Fulham, is there a possibility for Ange to say to the players, look, you didn't perform, and therefore players who haven't had a chance when all the first team players are available are going to get a chance, by which I mean maybe a lot of people have been talking about maybe Højbjerg coming in for Bissouma and maybe Lo Celso coming in to get a chance as well. We certainly do sometimes lack a little bit of creativity when Maddison isn't at the top of his game. I'd be intrigued to see a Lo Celso and Maddison central midfield, and against Luton at home, who you've got to expect Luton are going to sit back and try and just hit us on counter-attacks and set pieces more than anything. Is there room for a bit more creativity in that midfield and for Lo Celso to get what may be his final chance at Spurs realistically? Because like I said, he gets injured so much that there must be a temptation in the summer to kind of take, if any money comes in over like £20 million, to maybe take that. And there have, of course, in the last year, 18 months, been lots of talk of clubs like Barcelona being interested in Lo Celso. And of course, he's just got that incredible CV, which comes with an endorsement from Lionel Messi, who just rates him so highly. says he's like a linchpin in that Argentinian team and was so gutted when Lo Celso got injured and couldn't play in the World Cup. So let me know in the comments what you think. Is Lo Celso someone we should keep? Good squad player, and we do need depth in our squad, or would you take money for him? And do you think he's got a chance of starting against Luton? I'm going to talk a bit more about Pedro Porro further down in this episode, but first off, he did play 90 minutes for Spain in an disappointing, I'd say, 1-0 loss to Colombia. Radu Dragusin also played 90 minutes in their draw, Romania's draw with Northern Ireland. A little bit of cute news coming out of Spurs in the last week, which is that Ben Davies has made it known that Heung-min Sonny, is the godfather to his son. I think that's so sweet and really important stuff like this in terms of creating a family atmosphere at the club. Not just creating it, but showing the fans that kind of family atmosphere and good bond within the team isn't just for show. Things like this, I think, I love to hear it because it shows just how close these players are. I always loved it back in the day when Eric Dyer and Dele Alli were incredibly close, and we've seen down the years how Sonny is almost like the linchpin of all these different groups and cliques within the club. There's obviously lots of different nationalities, groups who speak in different languages, but we've heard in the last kind of month or so that Sonny tries to learn all the different languages so he can be close and friends with all of those people. And you've got to say, what an amazing captain we've got in Sonny, because he's clearly a leader, both on and off the pitch, but also a winner as well. We see it. We've seen it enough times that he's not just the happy, smiley, go lucky, oh, he's happy for anything to happen. He wants to win, and he'll do anything to win. And I think we're lucky to have him. And I know there's been talk about his contract over the last 6 months or so. I would sign him up. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Sign him up. Get him on a 5-year deal. I know he's 31, 32, but tell him you stay at your whole career at Tottenham Hotspur, then you can become an ambassador if you don't want to get into coaching. I read an article this week that Sonny doesn't seem to be that keen to get into coaching or management. So give him a job. Make him an ambassador of the club. He's talked about, I read in this article that he said that after his play, that's when he's going to concentrate on trying to find someone to settle down with and have children with. Well, let that be in London, Sonny. Be an ambassador of the club, the face of Tottenham Hotspur for the rest of your career. And it would be the right thing for the club on a kind of emotional level, but also realistically, thinking of Daniel Levy, he wouldn't mind that on a financial level too, because it would keep those Korean fans interested in Tottenham Hotspur. Ben Davies, as well as making it clear that Sonny is the godfather to his son, he also did an interview this week where he was asked which player really stood out for him over his time at the club. He's been at Tottenham for over 10 years now, a real stalwart, really impressive pro. And these are some of the quotes that Ben Davies came out with. He talked about Christian Eriksen. He says he wasn't a physically dominant player. He was just someone who had so much quality. It always seemed like he used to get the ball and have more time than everybody else. What he was amazing at, and still is, was that he's like a manager on the pitch. He dictates where everyone goes, dictates the tempo of the game, and if there's times when the game is getting away from you, he's the one that slows it down. Now, it feels like a dangerous area almost to talk about Christian Eriksen, because a corner of the fan base was so angry with him towards his last kind of year, 6 months at Spurs. I felt he was winding down because his contract was running down. And I've always stuck to what I believe on that, which is it's just human nature that you would drop off a percentage point or 2 or 3 if your contract is running down, because you don't want to get injured and lose that possibility of either signing a new deal at the club you're at or getting that big signing on bonus for moving on a Bosman. But Eriksen, for me, I agree with Ben Davies. He was so vital to that Pochettino Spurs team and everything we succeeded at then. Now, I know some people will say, well, we didn't succeed at anything because we didn't win any trophies, but that journey we were on was so incredible, and Eriksen was absolutely the linchpin. I remember exactly where I was the first time I saw him play when he was about 17, I think, for Denmark against England in Copenhagen, I think it was, and Denmark absolutely tore us to shreds, and Eriksen was a cut above. And for the few years after that, I was like, oh, Eriksen is such an incredible player. He'd never signed for Spurs. He's too good. And then we got him through the door. It was so exciting. After the Rafa van der Vaart signing, it was like the most excited I've ever been. And after he joined, obviously it took a while before Pochettino came in, but then he was the true number 10. What an absolute player. And I still think he's a brilliant player, and he's underrated and underused at Man United, where they use him in a kind of a 6 or 8 role. He's not. He's a pure 10. He is a pure 10. Get him in those pockets and in those holes. Get him kind of, commanding the orchestra. and Man United would be a better team for it. But they choose Bruno Fernandes for that position. United fans love Bruno Fernandes, but I think Eriksen's better at it. Next up, Pedro Porro was asked about his improvement at Spurs this season under Ange Postecoglou, and also about the criticism that he faced when he first joined Spurs. And Pedro said this. He said, "It's different from when I arrived. Now I feel more important in the team. I feel much more confident that at the end of the day, that also makes you better. I'm feeling much better more and more as the games go by. I'm more used to playing in the Premier League, and I think that's important." And then in terms of the criticism, he said, obviously, nobody likes it. Nobody likes the criticism. But in this world, you're exposed to good and bad things being said about you. I guess he's talking about social media. At the end of the day, you don't care as long as you are confident in yourself. I knew that I was going to get a lot of criticism and that it was going to be difficult at first. Not everyone is perfect and goes and fits in the first time. Now I've been working really hard to turn that criticism into praise, and now I'm feeling more affection. Lovely to hear that from Pedro Porro. I think he's a great player. He's had a brilliant season in his first season as a pure fullback in a flat back four. It can only improve as they all get used to Ange's system and to each other. And I think that back four of Udogie, Porro, Van de Ven and Romero potentially, if staying fit, could be our back four for a good few years to come and could become really, really vital in terms of the best defenders in the country. Just a few more little bits of international news. Brennan Johnson scored in Wales' 4-1 playoff win over Finland. He got 73 minutes there. That's good for his confidence, I think. Destiny Udogie had a great game for Italy against Venezuela from everything that I've read. And Sonny himself scored for South Korea against Thailand and absolutely loved it. Huge celebration from Sonny. Good to see. Obviously, maybe a bit stressed there because they didn't do as well in the Asian Cup as they wanted to, so he was happy to be back on the score sheet. And as I said at the top, Lucas Bergvall, a big, exciting summer signing, the Swedish international Wonderkid. He's played in the unders for Sweden and just looks like an absolute player. He's been included in goals list of best Wonder Kids. He's in the early 20s in that list, but that's worldwide, the best Wonder Kids worldwide, and it's really impressive to me that Tottenham have been able to snare someone so young and talented that will have been looked at by all the biggest clubs in the world. So excited to see how Bergvall does when he gets to Tottenham in July. He's been ripping it up in the Swedish league, just taken his club to the cup final and was the linchpin in that semi-final from everything that I've heard. And like I've said before, he reminds me of a young little Luka Modric, always scanning, always looking around, 1 and 2 touch, can finish as well. Could be very exciting to see how he settles in. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Please do drop this a like and do subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, please come over to YouTube and subscribe, and vice versa. Please, even if you're watching on YouTube, do go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Give me a follow or a subscribe. It all really helps. And as I always say, you can be a Spurred on Pro or Patreon member. All the info in the description box. Just £1 a month, and it really helps support me to make this daily content for you. Looking forward to Luton this Saturday. Come on, you Spurs.